half the state of Washington is forested. About 2/3 of the forests are publicly owned for national parks, wilderness areas, recreation, wildlife, and some timber harvesting. The remaining forests are privately owned and produce most of our state's wood products. Private forest landowners in Washington state know that practicing sustainable forestry provides the public with great benefits, including clean water and air, fish and wildlife habitat, recreation, jobs, and the wood products we use every day. But the sustainability of our forest industry in Washington state is threatened today by many factors. The greatest threat comes from a growing population. About 1.5 million people will be added in the next 15 years, resulting in a pressure to convert our working forests to other land uses. Yet leaders from the tribal, conservation, and timber communities in Washington state are working together now. Billy Frank Jr. is a Nisqually tribal elder. He talks about the importance of these forests for his people, his culture, and for all of us who live in the great Northwest.
We have to work together. We have to make sure that we work side by side with the forest industry. And so, you know, the tribes are aware of how to work together, you know, sustainable ability to collaborate with one another. And, you know, what we always try to do, the tribes and the forest industry in the past, is stay the course. Find a balance to make sure that this forest is going to be here for the next generation and the next generation, you know. We have to be a model for the world here in the great Northwest, working with the timber industry and working with partners. The public has to be involved in everything that we do. We can't close our eyes and think all of it will go away. It's all working together and understanding and gaining trust among each other. And that'll give us hope for the future of all of us.
Sustainably managed forests and a growing population making new demands on the land must learn to coexist. More and more rural lands are being converted into housing developments as more people move into the state. But the Cascade Land Conservancy says we need to make sure we have great communities and working forests. That's what the Cascade Agenda is all about. We have this responsibility to future generations. Jean Duvernoy is the president of the Cascade Land Conservancy, Washington's largest independent land conservation and stewardship organization.
I've been at this work of conserving our landscapes for 30 years, and I look around this setting and it just cries why I do this work. We have a tradition of working forest lands in this state, and look what those forest lands provide each and every one of us. Clean air and clean water, good timber, and jobs. So there is a richness that we have in this state because we have both preserved land and active working timberland. And frankly, we need them both, and we need to make sure they're here not just today, but tomorrow and beyond. This state will have a very different population 100 years from now than it does today. We could double or more likely triple in population over the next 100 years. Some of that's coming from out of state, but over 50% of that population are our kids and grandkids. We deserve to give those future generations the same quality of life we have today. Now, that's not going to be easy. If we want to do that, if we mean to do that, we need to learn to conserve and live within the footprint our communities have already claimed for themselves. What I would ask is that we all learn about the issues at stake and we support really innovative programs to conserve our landscape. But we can do other things too. And one of the major things we can do is really make sure that our wood comes from local supply. That's going to be the challenge for our generation.
Washington is one of the best places in the world to grow and harvest trees. With our temperate climate, sophisticated and regulated industry, modern infrastructure, and access to multiple markets. Our forest products industry helped to build our state's economy and culture, and still plays an important role in our local rural economies and in the nation, as Washington state is the #2 supplier of softwood lumber in the United States. Mark Doumit is the executive director of the 100-year-old Washington Forest Protection Association, a group of private forest landowners concerned about the future of forestry in our state.
I've dedicated most of my life to the natural resources. Where my passion comes from for natural resources is that I want to leave the state of Washington as well for my children and grandchildren as I found it. And the way of life that we've had here is critical to having a bright future for this state. If we don't harvest trees in Washington state, the wood is likely to come from places that have much lower standards from a regulatory standpoint and from a sustainability standpoint. There are places around the planet where they never replant a tree. When they go in and harvest, it's cut down forever and the land is converted to an alternative use. Under a sustainable farming model that we practice in Washington, forestry is ongoing forever. We will cut a tree and plant 2 to 3 trees for every tree that's taken out, and at the same time that creates an environmental benefit at very low cost to the public. It's important that Washington state continue to plant and harvest trees because that creates the way of life that we've all grown to enjoy. The conservation groups have been partnering with us in recent years, and we're working to have a very strong partnership between the tribes, the industry, and the conservation groups to create a sustainable model which will keep forestry around forever. What the public can do to help keep sustainable forestry in Washington state is recognize that forestry isn't just about logging, but it's about a lot of things. Forestry in a sustainable forestry model is something that the public should cherish because it's providing them a lot of benefits at very little cost. It's providing clean air, clean water. It's providing fish and wildlife habitat that they need. It's providing recreational opportunities for the general public that really wouldn't be there without the wonderful forests on private lands that we have today.
Our challenge today is to set a vision for protecting and promoting working forests. If we continue responsibly harvesting and growing trees, we will have forests on our landscape forever.
I've been here 30 years.
Yeah.
You've been here with your family for 100 or so years.
Yeah.
Bill, you've been here for thousands
Yeah.
of years. I think what we all recognize is that there are going to be great changes, and Mark, you said it, there's going to be a mushrooming in our population.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
challenge for all of us, if we do one thing, is to learn how to work together and make sure that the future generations have a state as great as it is today.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, we don't want to leave it worse for
No.
our kids and grandkids than we've had it.
We want to leave it better.
And working together will make that happen.
You bet. You bet.
You know, getting creative at what we do, you know, have these models that we, you know, how we did it. You know, everybody's asking, how did you guys do it up in the Northwest? Well, we did it by sitting down like this and talking. And don't leave anybody out. Bring them to the table
That's right.
and make things happen. You know, have the leadership to make it happen, and have the commitment to make it happen.
I think the best way to keep working forests in forestry is to make sure that we keep them profitable and keep them economically viable so that people will be willing to invest in forestry. Because to plant a tree, a seedling, especially when you're our age, you're not going to see that harvested in my lifetime. So it's an act of faith.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of act of faith that we have to give to the fish and the clean water if we want to have it for the next generation.
To me, working together and coming together like this afternoon is hope for our younger people, the generation that's here today we got to hand this management off to them at some point in time, and they have to understand what management is all about and what sustainability is all about. Sustainability is about us, our life, and our hope.
I'm here sitting as a conservationist, listening to a leader in the fish conservation movement and tribal rights movement, listening to a leader in the timber industry, and I hear much the same thing being said by both of you. I'm pretty optimistic. Neither of you are stuck in yesterday's battle. So if you two aren't, what we need to do working together and what we need to tell the generations after us is to be bold, to be strikingly bold, and to have the courage to work together, which takes courage, the courage to work together, the faith to work together, and to really try new solutions, not just the old ways of fighting, but really work on new solutions. And I think we can get through this.
That's good.